On this week's travel show, we're exploring a secret corner of Spain full of places that time forgot.
It's really beautiful around here. It's really quiet.
We're tackling the Great Wall of China, one step at a time. And we're tracking down a wild and secretive creature that's learnt to steer well clear of humans.
We're looking out in the bottom of the valley here, and that's where the wolf is most likely to get a good breakfast. Hello and welcome to the Travel Show with me, Krista Larwood, coming this week from Palencia in Spain. Now, this country is one of the world's biggest tourism destinations. Each year, over 60 million people arrive on these shores, but they often head for the Mediterranean coast and cities like Barcelona or Madrid. But here in rural Spain, many struggling communities are pinning their hopes on becoming the next big holiday hotspot.
I've travelled fairly widely in Spain, but on this trip I'm heading to a region in the north of the country that I've never heard of before. Its name is Palencia. Only a handful of tourists come here, which is hard to believe given the breathtaking scenery. And in the middle of this wild countryside, there are amazing, virtually untouched medieval churches scattered everywhere. Nowhere else in Europe has so many of these churches, and they give you a real sense that you've stepped back in time. This area may be beautiful, but for centuries it's also been poor, and traditionally many people had no choice but to leave in search of work and the hope of a better life. Now some of the current generation are hoping that tourism will help bring new life to this region. My journey begins in the southern part of Palencia. One of the medieval pilgrimage routes that led to Santiago de Compostela goes through this area. In other parts of Spain, the Camino de Santiago trails are packed with pilgrims. But here I only see a few.
This region of Palencia is not very well known. Have you found that there are lots of tourists here, or has it been a break from the tourists?
Didn't see any tourists. It's a little bit crazy because I'm from Germany and there are not places like this where there's nothing.
I continue my journey along the trail of the Camino de Santiago.
Beautiful around here. It's really quiet. Music. I think I found all the people.
GARCIA.
Just in case. I think I've just ordered a medieval roast. Who knows what might come out.
This restaurant has been feeding hungry pilgrims for decades. Now offering medieval feasts, they're hoping to put the Palencia section of the Camino de Santiago trail in the spotlight. There are no pilgrims here today, but a local family is celebrating a birthday. And they're clearly getting into the medieval spirit.
Wow!
Thank you. What do I do for knife and fork?
No, aquí no hay.
No?
No hay cuchillos, se come a mano.
Let's pick this up.
Sí,
It
sí, porque es comida medieval.
does taste really good though.
Heading north, I reach the mountains of northern Palencia. These villages are even further off the beaten track. Every village here seems to have a medieval church. There are over 250 in just a small area. The architectural style is called Romanesque and dates back to the 11th century, and it's rare to see so many of them so close together. Elsewhere in Europe, these types of churches were often altered and modernised over the centuries. Here, they remain untouched.
Wow, that is a key. That's a key and a half, that. This place really properly is just hewn out of rock.
In the 12th century, this area was very important because the center of power of this area is very close here, and this is one of the most important places of the Kingdom of Castilla. After this 12th century, the center of the power go away of this area, and mountain area, not so rich in the fields. This area began to be a poor area.
So when they had more money, in later centuries, they would come in and tear down the old churches to rebuild them.
Yeah.
Whereas because this is poor,
Yeah.
it's been kept perfectly for us.
Yeah.
Many people around here have remained poor right up to this day. Over the centuries, most of the villages in northern Palencia emptied as people migrated into the cities looking for work. I wanted to see one of these abandoned villages. It's in a precarious condition, but I'm safe enough because I'm with an expert on historical buildings who knows this 17th century house very well.
El resultado de muchos años de ahorros, ¿dónde está? Está esa cama de 1920 y había niños, muchos niños.
This is
Las
like
revistas.
a bedroom of a teenager or something. We've got some Michael Jackson.
Don Johnson.
Wow, I'll tell you what, this is like a time capsule of what was cool when this house was abandoned. Don Johnson.
Muchas casas dejaron todo con la intención de volver, pero no volvieron.
Because of the recent economic downturn in Spain, youth unemployment in some areas runs at close to 40%. And as people struggle to find jobs in the big cities, here in the countryside, the situation is even bleaker.
Parece ser que la supervivencia siempre del medio rural, la supervivencia futuro, es el turismo. El turismo ayuda, pero no solo es la clave. Quizás no haya tantos turistas para tantos pueblos necesitados de turismo. Y al final incluso muchas veces un turismo masivo acaba desnaturalizando a los pueblos.
I've seen all around the world how tourism can help to preserve cultures, but there's also something special that's lost the moment the first tourist buses arrive.
Cuando vienes a visitar estas iglesias, el hecho de no verlas aglomerado, verlas en tranquilidad, verlas en un paisaje natural para el que fueron creadas, te hace sentirte único, te hace sentir diferente, te hace volver al 1200, ¿no?
Hopefully the people of Palencia get the tourist numbers they richly deserve. But also fight hard to protect the authenticity of their medieval culture, of which, as I've discovered, they're justly proud.
Still to come on the travel show.
We're snapping up guilty pleasures in New Orleans. And I'm falling a little bit in love with a big dog that thinks it's a wolf.
The travel show, your essential guide wherever you're headed.
Hello, I'm Michelle Yana-Chan, your global guide with top tips on the world's best events in the coming month. And starting in the US, the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, or Jazz Fest, begins April 28th, which, in spite of its name, will be a hub of blues, R&B, gospel, folk, Latin, rock, rap, country and bluegrass. This year there'll be a Cuban theme with a Conga Los Hoyos dance parade. Food on offer will include Creole, Cajun, and this year also Cuban cooking, so you won't be going hungry for crawfish pie or fillet gumbo. Meanwhile, in Samoa, the 5-island swim held May 10th to 13th is a series of open water swims over 4 days, covering a total of 27 kilometres. It's a challenge, no doubt, but even in the heat of competition, don't forget to spot tropical fish among the coral reefs in this Polynesian paradise. Between April 28th and May 7th, South Korea will be celebrating the birth of the Buddha with an extravagant festival of lights, the Lotus Lantern Festival. There'll be colourful handmade lantern exhibitions, folk music performances, and parades of dancers, floats and dragons. In Italy, the northern city of Ravenna hosts a summer music festival in venues including gilded Byzantine basilicas to cloisters, piazzas to pine forests. It's a celebration of art, classical music and opera, but also dance, drama and jazz. The festival runs from May 25th to July 11th. In China, the Hard as Nails Great Wall Marathon takes place on May 20th. It's one of the most challenging long-distance runs, drawing thousands of competitors who choose between the full-length course, a half marathon, or an 8.5-kilometre fun run. Starting in Huangyaguan, a few hours from Beijing in the heart of the Yanshan Mountains, the route involves some steep climbs and descents, smooth flagstones to rough surfaces, and over 5,000 steps. Last year, the fastest speed was 3 hours 30 minutes, the time to beat. Back in the US, it'll be man against machine from May 26th to 28th, when the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic takes place in the Colorado town of Durango. The event dates back to the late 1880s when two brothers raced against each other. The elder was a brakeman on a steam-powered locomotive who challenged his younger brother to race the train from Durango to Silverton. These days, the train takes a shorter route. Thousands take part, trying to beat the train before it pulls into its final destination. There are other events around the classic, including mountain biking, BMX races, dual slaloms and team trail rides. At the end of April, yachts from all over the world will be arriving in the Caribbean for Antigua Sailing Week. From April 29th, there'll be 5 days of competitive racing off the south coast of the island. If you're not on a boat, the next best place to be is Shirley Heights Lookout with its sweeping ocean views. And try to get here early. Some events have already started, including the Antigua Classic Yacht Regatta, when the Caribbean Sea is dotted with elegant vintage yachts and tall ships. Finally, in Morocco, the Mawazine Festival, Rhythms of the World, runs from May 12th to 20th in the capital Rabat. The beats include regatta, musique gnawa and Hassani songs, and there'll be more than 100 shows from local, Moroccan, African and international artists. That's my global guide this month. Let me know what's happening in the place where you live or where you love. We're on email and across social media. Until next time, happy travelling.
I've come to the mountains in Palencia, here in northern Spain, to search for an elusive animal, the Iberian wolf. For centuries, these animals have bred both fear and fascination in humans, and here in Palencia, they're now flourishing like nowhere else in Europe.
Si es que son recientes.
So I've tracked down a man who's leading wolf safaris, much to the amazement of many of the locals, who have always been taught to fear these legendary predators. But in an ironic twist, the wolves could now help lead the way to the economic salvation that's much needed in this very poor region of Spain.
Hola.
Hello, Krista.
TINO Garcia is the pioneer of wolf tours in Palencia. Along with his wife Rosa, he's restored a once derelict home and now welcomes visitors who want to catch a glimpse of the local wolves. Even though many of his neighbours were sceptical his business would succeed.
Todo el mundo se reía de nosotros, ¿verdad? Decían, ¡buah, estáis locos! Eso, ¿quién va a venir aquí? ¿Quién va a venir aquí?
If you're not a fan of very early starts, then wolf watching is definitely not for you.
Good morning, Krista.
Good morning.
¿Qué tal?
I'm tired, that's what I am.
A ver si hoy hay suerte.
Living in such close proximity to humans, these wolves have learnt to survive by keeping a low profile. So don't expect to hear any Hollywood-style howling coming from up in the hills.
Vamos a apagar las luces del coche porque a partir de aquí ya tenemos que estar en completamente oscuridad.
Is this safe?
Vas con un profesional. Que Tino tiene los ojos como el lobo. Puede ver por la noche.
All right, my life's in your hands, Tino. It's kind of amazing driving in the dark. Look out, and it's all just shades of grey. It's amazing how quickly your eyes become accustomed to not having headlights. We have to be really, really quiet from now on because these wolves are very used to living with humans who shoot them. So the minute they hear the sound of a human, a car door or a voice, they run for the hills. The Iberian wolf was almost hunted to extinction in the 1970s. But as the failing economy forced people to move away from the villages, the wolf population started to climb. But wolves are still hunted today. The culling season only finished 2 weeks ago, so the wolves are more cautious than ever. But that only increases a sense of adventure when you set out on a trip like this. Knowing your guide will have to use all of his skills and training to spot what you've come to see. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Timo's just telling me that we're looking out in the bottom of the valley here, because that's where the deer tend to come, and that's where the wolf is most likely to get a good breakfast. For Tino, it's important to stay at a distance so the wolves aren't disturbed.
Estamos intentando ver uno de los carnívoros más difíciles de ver del planeta. Yo creo que la hora que es, lo vamos a dejar ya.
That's it.
Sorry.
That's quite all right.
Ahora el ángel.
Now that we don't have to be quiet, time to take a break and have some fun.
I'll go.
It's quite magical to have the whole mountainside to ourselves. Wolf watchers are helping to bring money and jobs to the area.
¿Qué tal estás?
But for the few remaining shepherds, living alongside a rising wolf population is more challenging than ever.
No pasa nada por cogerles así.
To help them, they have something that's a real match for the Iberian wolf, the Spanish Mastiff.
Oh my goodness. Can I take him home, please?
Pues se te puede mandar una vez una cría.
So what are these dogs used for and why are they so special?
El lobo entra en contra del viento. Perro que ya lo sabe que es un buen jinete, se tumba a favor y le huele. A mí me mataron 30 una noche, en un rato, ¿eh?
So 30 sheep in one night.
Juan,
Did that make you really hate wolves?
tú fíjate que con una que comieran ya quitan el hambre, pues las tienen que matar todas.
Shepherds can be compensated when any of their livestock is killed by wolves. But it's a slow and bureaucratic process, and it doesn't always pay out. Tino has got to know wolves individually after watching the same packs for many years, but there is one wolf who's very special to him.
Ese mismo año que se partió la pata, tuvo 5 cachorros. Sacó adelante los 5 cachorros y al año siguiente dejó de ser la hembra alfa. Pero el grupo no la echó de su lado. la siguió teniendo para que la otra hembra alfa que salió cuidase de sus cachorros.
Sadly, this isn't the best time of year to see wolves. Spring heralds the start of the mating season, and they like to keep their courtship rituals pretty private. Tino likes to bring people later in the year, when the cubs have grown up.
Hay gente que se emociona, la mayoría se emociona, y muchas de las personas acaban llorando, ¿no? Incluso lloramos hasta juntos, ¿no? Emocionados ambos.
They cry.
Sí, es algo maravilloso, porque encima como es una experiencia que cuesta el poderle ver, pues al final cuando llega es algo, el culmen.
As the day wears on, I'm beginning to lose hope. If I'm going to see a wolf, I'm going to have to get creative. This is a local breed called the wolf dog. Genetically, it's partly domesticated dog, but it's mostly Iberian wolf.
You are quite wolfy, aren't you?
Tino says he wouldn't be able to tell the difference between this dog and a wild wolf. That's why the dog is wearing a bright yellow collar, so that locals don't mistake him for a wolf and shoot him. These dogs were bred to protect cattle from wild wolves. They look like and think like the enemy. And the puppies beg for food from adults, just like wild wolf cubs do. Meeting a wolf dog has given me a little glimpse of a wolf's character. And who knows, maybe I'll be back someday and be lucky enough to see the real thing high in the hills here in Palencia.
I think this is definitely the closest I'm ever going to come to a wolf.
Well, that's all we've got time for in this week's travel show, but coming up next week...
Addie heads to Ghana as the country prepares to mark the 60th anniversary of becoming an independent nation.
Well, as the country's in party mode, I'm going to have a poke around and see what you can expect from Ghana if you travel here.
So do join us then if you can. And in the meantime, don't forget you can catch up with us while we're out having adventures on the road in real time by following us online and on social media. Details are on the screen. But for now, from me, Crystal Larwood, and the rest of the travel show team here in Palencia, it's goodbye.